Rugby World Cup 2023 quarterfinals are in the bag, folks. We had some pretty bloody good games and some pretty close results. We'll go through 5 takeaways from these quarterfinals, and you guys can let us know your thoughts for this one. I've written up a piece for Planet Rugby, so that'll be down in the description. Check Planet Rugby out. It's a bit of a rugby hub at the moment for all the kind of news, team stats, and all that kind of jazz that's going on. First one, it's a sad one to say, but the quarterfinal curse. I mean, you can call it a curse if you want, but Ireland is out in another quarterfinal. It doesn't feel right. I don't feel like many fans. I mean, of course, I've seen online some people are taking joy into the fact that the Irish went out, but most people think, man, that's a team that's better than a quarterfinal team. They've been on a hell of a run. It just sucks that it comes to an end in a quarterfinal. It's going to be maybe coinciding with a bit of a change of the guard after World Cups. A lot of teams will change playing staff. The fact that Andy Farrell is staying on, I think, is an encouraging one. We've seen him, keep a pretty stable side across the course of the World Cup, but he's also brought in some guys in kind of key positions. So you would think with that kind of production line of talent and hopefully a more, I don't want to say easier draw, but like a more balanced draw will give Ireland a better crack at the next one. I mean, obviously, if you want to win the World Cup, you just need to beat everyone who's in front of you. But sooner or later, it's going to happen. It's just not this time. So, yeah, that's a sad one, but that is what it is. Next one I'm going to say is the Pumas bench. The bench, you would probably say, was the difference between those two sides, between Wales and Argentina. Obviously, Wales under Gatland have got a pretty young squad, and I also think the future is looking pretty bright for them as well with the amount of guys they've been able to bring in and give experience to in the kind of last 12 months or even a bit less. But for the Pumas, their bench, and in particular a lot of veterans on the bench, seemed to help pretty well. Man, remember, the Pumas were down by 10 points. They managed to come back into the game. You get a try through replacement prop Joel Sclavi, who comes on after about a minute later or two, is able to burrow over for a try. You get Nico Sanchez, who picked the pocket of one of the youngsters from this Welsh side, Sam Costello, showing a bit of experience and is still enough gas to get over the line. He gets a try. You get Maroney with a try-saving tackle on Reece Zammit. You get Augustine Creevy finishing the game with a turnover. So the bench from Argentina really made a big impact. And one would think against the All Blacks, it's going to be a game where they're big time underdogs. But if they can get a proper 23-man performance, hey, they've done it before. You never know. Speaking of the All Blacks, we're going to say the New Zealand keys to victory over that Irish side were maybe like one area of concern with the Irish side going into this one was their line-out. It's been under a bit of pressure. Like of all the tier 1 sides, their line-out numbers have not been great. It's one of the few areas that you look at that Irish side and go, they're kind of not leading the way in one of these categories, because a lot of categories they've got really great numbers, but line-out wasn't great, and it still proved to be the case a little bit against the All Blacks. They got their line-out stolen a couple of times, and sometimes it was a wee bit messy, not always the cleanest ball. That's one area that New Zealand did really well, and you would think they will look to challenge Argentina in the same area. And also the breakdown. Like, I've been speaking about guys like Van der Fleer and Tygburn and whatnot for a long time. If you know I'm a stats guy, their numbers are always fantastic in that department. But Tygburn goes through that game, doesn't win any turnovers. I think Van der Fleer gets one. But you got a couple of guys like Sam Cane, who finishes the game's top tackler, but also wins a couple of turnovers. Artie Savia wins a couple of turnovers, and then Sam Whitelock, the veteran, comes off the bench and wins a game-winning turnover as well. You could talk about the scrum, but that was a bit of a contentious one. I know Andy Farrell and Andrew Porter weren't particularly happy about that. But, yeah, certainly getting a great shift at the breakdown for New Zealand. You know, we saw what Ireland did to South Africa when they were able to get ahead at the breakdown and put them in good stead to win a game. Same thing happens here, but this time it's Ireland on the receiving end of it. Next one, I'm going to say Bok speed. And what I'm talking about is their line speed against France was incredible. The South African guys were just shutting down any kind of space that the French attackers had. Their rate of getting up in their faces it just made them look uncomfortable. How many times did the French guys end up going backwards when they were going through phases just because Springbok defenders were just closing them down? And I feel like it made a little bit of a misleading stat in terms of the number of missed tackles. It was in the 40s. And sure, France had a lot more balls. South Africa had to make a lot more tackles. So whoever's making more tackles is going to miss more tackles. But also, sometimes they're not even trying to make a tackle. Like they would like to get a tackle, but their main point is to get in your face, make you throw a ball to the grass, make you cough up the pill, make you uncomfortable. So I feel like they did that really well. And then you still had a bunch of guys, like 7 of their players got 10 plus tackles. Like Jesse Creel had more than 10. Dale Ende had more than 10. Even big Franz Malherbe, those were the only 2 backs, but Franz Malherbe got more than 10. Peter Steff, he's tireless, more than 10. So, yeah. South Africa's line speed caused all kinds of problems. It wasn't the only area of the game that they did really well. High ball game worked good. Scrum started to get on top, but their line speed was particularly impressive. And the last one, I'm going to say, is the English calm. Now, you could say England took their foot off the throat by letting Fiji in for a couple of quick-fire tries. England had a 14-point lead against Fiji. The game all but sewed up when they missed a shot at goal, which would have made it a 3-score game, only to concede a quick-fire double. So England go from being relatively comfortably in front to suddenly the scores are level again, and now you got to go out and win the game again after, as I said, kind of seemingly having it in the bag. And they did. About 2 minutes after conceding that game-leveling try and conversion, England just go down the other end. The Fords put a bunch of big old phases in. Owen Farrell, casual as you like, scores what seems like the easiest drop goal I've ever seen. He had so much time. None of the Fijian guys were able to get up in his face to shut it down. Easy. So England go back to being in the lead. 6 minutes later, he slots another shot at a penalty. So 6-point lead, which ends up being enough. They're still under a bit of pressure at the end. With the game not absolutely secured, but certainly England go from being in a position where Fiji had a bunch of momentum. They could have gone into their shells, they could have panicked, but they didn't. They settled, they got things back calm, and they were able to go back out and make sure they got the win in that semi-final. Now, you would think against South Africa, you can't switch off like that because they will absolutely punish you just like Fiji did, or even more so, but yeah. Certainly the South African forwards are not just going to let you go through a bunch of phases and casually slot a drop goal. You saw what Cheslin Colby did, chasing down a conversion kick. So yeah, 5 takeaways from the week. We look forward to the semi-finals. Going to be some big old games. 3 rugby championship teams and just the English flying the flag for the Six Nations teams. But yeah, you guys let us know your thoughts. As I said, check out the Planet Rugby article down in the description. And I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.